All right. Let's get this show on the road, Jeff. It's the final show for 2022, and you're on it. So,
Lucky me.
yeah. Thanks for stepping in because Jared, of course, is knee deep in his fantasy football coverage and ended his trial run. He'll return, of course, in January of 2023. Not sure if it's going to be the Tournament of Champions or Sony, but once he returns, we're going to have a nice long year in golf instead of a quarter of a season, which we had this time around with Jared, and we'll have the Masters. So that's nice. Matter of fact, Jared hit two of his picks in the majors, and I hit one of mine in a major. So out of the three majors, we aired together the previews. We were able to get the majors all wins, so that was good. Our totals were over 3,000 combined. So if viewers played our picks, they made over $3,000. So we had a very successful quarter. So maybe next year, if we have a full, 3/4 or a full season, then maybe we'll do a lot worse. You know how it is.
So.
The more games we'll have, the more opportunity to lose.
Well, and then, I don't know how you judge it, but remember that the PGA Tour is getting out of the wraparound season here in the next 18 months or whatever it is. So I don't know how that affects you. Maybe it doesn't, but that changes all too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They didn't make a decision yet, right? They said they were going to wait till they decide exactly what the schedule is going to be coming up during football season.
I think what they're going to do is, obviously they had to set for the 2022-2023 season, and then the fall of 2023 will be the debut of this new schedule, which is kind of two schedules in one. The lucrative schedule for the big names and big purses that, it's funny how the PGA Tour all of a sudden found this extra money in the couch cushions. But you'll have those tournaments for the top 50 in the world. And then for everybody that's looking to get some FedEx Cup points, get a head start on lots of things, sometimes just, keep their card, then I think a lot of what is currently on that schedule in the fall, Mississippi, Fortinet in California, those tournaments will become part of that kind of mini season where some PGA Tour cards will be at stake and to either be kept or gained. So I don't have all of the details in front of me, but that is part of this new schedule or new plan that they hope will be able to get more of the big names to play in September, October, November, as opposed to what had happened previously. Sometimes they would, sometimes they won't. It was all a question of whether a guy like Scottie Scheffler or Rory McIlroy said, you know what, I should get a little bit of a head start on getting some FedEx Cup points so that when I really want to start playing in late January, I'm not buried at 120th on the FedEx Cup points list.
Yeah, because right now they don't even have a schedule out. I guess they haven't decided yet.
Well, they're locked in for 2022-23. That was released last week.
Oh, they haven't updated it on their website.
Not much change, hardly at all, on the schedule as compared to what it was this year. I think the Rocket Mortgage Classic moves up earlier in the summer because that's how the dates play out when you're scheduling around the Open Championship. I think that's the big one.
Talking about next year's schedule?
You're talking about the schedule that begins in 5 weeks and carries through to this time next year.
So they haven't shown that yet. I don't see their schedule. So
I'll point you to it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even have it on their own website. I got to tell you, I'm not very happy with their website this year with the FedEx. They do a really poor job of, it's too all over the place. Like if you click on the FedEx Cup link on the top, first of all, a lot of the stuff was still, I mean, I don't need to see Patrick Cantlay's stuff from last year. It's old, put it somewhere else. And then, they have all these other things as far as playoff standings. I had to click like 5 or 6 different updated playoff standings, and they're all different, projected and updated, and here's this and here. I just confused the hell out of me. I mean, you could just have one place, you click, you see the actual standings, and it's like, can't you just do that? That's all I want. I don't need to have 5 or 6 different FedEx standings, projected this, do that, did it. It's just confusing as hell, and I don't know why they do it that way. And then on top of that, like I said, they haven't had a schedule yet. If you tap on the schedule on their website, they have not had a fall schedule past the Tour Championship on their schedule page for months. And like you said, I guess if it changed last week, then at least you would think that they would have updated on their schedule page by now, but they haven't done that yet.
Well, I just kind of moseyed on over there, and you do have to change the year on the drop down. You can get schedules going all the way back to 1980 on this website, but the default is the current schedule, 2021-22. But if you go to the drop down, it is now they do now have a slot where you can change it over to 2022-23.
Yeah, there's more confusion. So then what they said next year is that, didn't they say something like you were saying, this time next year the plan is that they want to have at least a couple of tournaments where they'll have the bigger names playing, not just like you were saying. Well, I mean, not I know you weren't implying this, but not just like, all right, one of the, a top player might say, I'll play in that tournament. Another top player will play, I'll play in that tournament. More like, let's get everybody together for like 1 or 2 tournaments during that 4-month stretch.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Obviously, the players need to buy into it. Yeah. And I think that was part of what was kind of the intent to put a couple of those World Golf Championships events in the fall, including the one in China, which now is going a 3rd consecutive year without being played. And honestly, I don't know how much longer that series may stand up, because what used to be the Firestone or Bridgestone Championship, and then it moved to Memphis, and now Memphis is moving into the FedEx Cup Playoffs, and that's gone away. So the Mexico Championship that used to be the old WGC at Doral, well, they stripped that event of WGC status and made it just a regular event. So the schedule now has one quote-unquote World Golf Championships event, and that's the match play in April, early April or late March.
Okay.
And so I think that won
all year,
because the other 3 were China, which hasn't been played in 3 years.
Okay.
Mexico, which became a regular PGA Tour event and was not substituted with another event getting the WGC status, and now Memphis, which inherited from Firestone, and now Memphis is in the playoffs, and again, no substitute. So I think the World Golf Championship Series is being phased out, perhaps to make room for this particular series. Whatever, maybe they'll call it World Golf Championship Series. Maybe they're just going to make it a 2.0 type version type thing.
You mean during the fall?
In the fall.
All right, yeah. That's not bad. I don't mind that.
Yeah, the devil's still in the details, and I think Jay Monahan hasn't ironed all of that out. I think in a certain way, plans that may have been in the works for, say, 2025 have been pushed up now.
Okay.
And again, the devil's in the details. We're going to put these big events, we're going to put one in Europe and we're going to put one in Asia or whatever. And we're going to get big money sponsors and we're going to offer a lot of money to players. But they weren't able to put the entire package together as they try to fight off this threat from the LIV Golf Series.
Yeah, that's we'll see what happens. Hopefully they'll figure that out, because the more WGCs, the better. So we definitely hope that next year we have. So we only had one this year?
That's correct.
Wow. I didn't even realize that. That's a shame. Just one this year. All right. And it was a match play too. So, which kind of takes the fun out of it.
I like match play, but the series has completely lost its flavor, so to speak. And I don't know whether whether this new series will simply take the place of that or if they'll come up with new branding for a new concept, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so yeah, so the Fortinet, is that how you pronounce it? The Fortinet
Fortinet.
Championship, that'll be the first one following the Tour Championship a few weeks after, I guess, September 15th.
They'll actually take, and they haven't done this in forever, but they're going to take a 2-week break between the end of the season and the beginning of the season.
That's okay. It's football season.
I think there are a lot of people in favor of that. And so they will open in California and Napa, as they have for the last number of years. It's got a new sponsor, or the sponsor joined last year, Fortinet. And then the President's Cup is the second week of that series. And then they'll play another 7 or 8 tournaments after that, heading up through the RSM at Thanksgiving. And then they'll take their usual break.
Yeah. And just seeing here. So is this event in Bermuda? Is that the Hero? The old Hero?
No.
The Butterfield Bermuda Championship?
The Bermuda Championship has been an opposite field event for a number of years, but has been in kind of a fortunate situation in that it was supposed to be the opposite event to the WGC in China. And when the WGC in China got canceled, then they elevated the Bermuda Championship to full FedEx status instead of
Lucky them.
As an alternate event. So yeah, good for them. It was kind of not meant to be that way. It does struggle to get participants because you are flying across a body of water and all the expenses for not a very big purse.
No, it's not.
But if you want to get some FedEx Cup points and put yourself in decent status in the fall, and honestly, for younger players or players that maybe have been a little bit borderline, what better way to maybe go out and score that PGA Tour win than against a field that doesn't necessarily include Rory McIlroy and Tony Finau and Matthew Fitzpatrick, and the names. Yeah,
and December doesn't really offer much. So it's really just September, October, November, and December is pretty much Hero kind of, all right, that's all right, but you're deep into football season, and it's a small field, but it's still...
And it's not even really a PGA Tour event. You don't get any FedEx Cup points, and you don't get any sort of status for winning. You do get some world ranking points because they did work out... Many, many years ago, they worked out a deal with the World Golf Rankings people. They basically said, how many players do you have to have for an event to have world ranking points? And so they crunched some numbers and they said, you know what? 18 will work. So they increased the field from 16 to 18. There we go.
Qbe Shootout, what is that again? That's a team?
The Shark Shootout. That's the 2-man team event held in the Naples area. It's been going on for a quarter century now, or thereabouts.
All right, so that's what's coming up. President's Cup year this year. Charlotte, Quail Hollow Club.
Okay. Quail Hollow.
Are they coming back to Quail Hollow for the Wells Fargo after that?
They will.
Good.
They will. Good. They have thrown all of their energy into getting ready for this President's Cup, as completely understood, and that's why they played it up at Potomac this past summer. But next year they will go back to Quail Hollow, and I think that they obviously want to hold those special events and will push Quail Hollow to someplace else when need be. But I don't think they ever want to let go of the Wells Fargo Championship as an annual event.
Now, we're going to have a better President's Cup, aren't we? Like a more competitive President's Cup?
That's so hard to say because a lot of those players that have been banned from the PGA Tour, South Africans, there's 4 South Africans. Abraham Answer is banned. Carlos Ortiz. I'm not so sure about Carlos Ortiz, but there are a number of players from that side of it that I think it really diluted the international field. I haven't looked at the international points of late to really know, but I can think of 4 players that would be completely prominent on the President's Cup international squad that will not be playing because they are with LIV Golf. And we're thinking about Charles Schwartzel. We're thinking about Louis Oosthuizen. We're thinking about Brandon Grace. We're thinking about Abraham Answer.
Okay.
And if I had the full list in front of me, I might be able to name one or two more.
What about the Koreans? They're in the internet. They're in the President's Cup, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll see Sung Jae Im. We'll see Mr. Tom Kim. I like that.
It was almost Buzz, from what I understand.
Okay.
I like that. Buzz Kim is far better than Tom Kim. Be unique, right?
Corey Connors.
Corey Connors could
International.
be, yeah.
Okay, Corey Connors. That's not bad. All right, so all right, there's yeah, but I see what you're saying. By the way, Mito Pereira.
Mito Pereira would be part of that, absolutely.
Okay.
And Joaquin Niemann, and honestly, that would make a very strong, I think,
Hideki,
pairing.
Right?
Hideki.
Okay.
Hideki would be in. Okay. Now, what happens after the President's Cup? Who knows, right? There's been that rumor that he'll be one of the next big names to jump.
Really? Hideki.
But not yet, at least to this point.
Ugh. You know, I hope that if this becomes, which it apparently is looking like, if this is going to become a long-term deal, I just hope it doesn't take long to fix things on their end. I mean, you just can't have this YouTube property. I mean, it's not good. And I can't even, I mean, it's very hard to follow, and it's just not very good. They have to change. They have to find a network somewhere that'll pick them up.
Well, and I think, too, that in kind of the rush to get a product out, first the LIV rushed to get their product out, and then the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan rushed to counter it. But I think that with the full 14 event schedule that will be played next year, the focus is let's find an outlet. Let's find a U.S. network. Apparently, you can get LIV tournaments on television in other countries, but they just haven't been able to find a U.S. property that's been willing on very short notice to do that. And of course, you know that CBS is not going to touch them. Yeah. NBC Golf Channel's not touching them. An interesting fact, if you look for the LIV Golf scoreboard, you cannot find it on golfchannel.com. They can give you the Epson Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour and whatever PGA Tour Latin America is named and whatever PGA, the Mackenzie Tour in Canada. You can get those scoreboards. You can't get the LIV Golf scoreboard on golfchannel.com. So those entities are really kind of out of the equation. ABC, ESPN already has so much programming that I can't see them jumping in. Fox had such a terrible experience when they had golf and the USGA properties. I'm not sure that they would jump in. Maybe they would, but I would tend to lean that they wouldn't. So my thinking is, and let's face it, they were the channel of the match and the match 2 and the match 3 and some of these other specialty deals. I think Turner might wind up being the LIV Golf outlet. I have no inside information. That's just process of elimination right there.
Hopefully they'll have it all set up for next year, because that'll just make it a lot easier. And because we're the ones that wind up getting screwed as fans. You know,
yeah.
Players make all their millions of dollars heading off to the LIV Tour, and then of course you've got the PGA Tour. Sure, they're not happy, but they're not going broke. So the only people that suffer are us, the fans, because we're losing those players from the PGA Tour, and then it's hard to follow them on the LIV Tour. So hopefully, television coverage will pick up. And then look, we don't like it like this, but if it's like I said, if it's gonna be like this for the long term, then make do. Sort of like how I'll watch I should probably get about 10 or 15 European Tour events a year myself, because there's decent fields over there, and that's decent. Sometimes you can get like good 10 or 15 players 10 times a year. So the LIV Tour is better than that, and I would watch, and I know a lot of other fans would watch. So it just gives you another event, and it's not every week. So it's really what, one of every 4 weeks, kind of, on a PGA
Not
Tour?
even, I would say about one every three. It's
One every
14
three. Okay.
events spread out over 10 or 11 months. So it would definitely be, on average, more than one a month. And then they're going to place their events. They have pledged. Of course, who knows what, as this grows more and more animosity, but they have pledged that they will not place their events opposite majors. I mean, they want players in
Yeah.
majors, but they also want to avoid the week before major, and they also want to avoid some legacy events such as the Arnold Palmer Invitational, the
Good.
Memorial,
Yeah.
those tournaments of that nature. So
Good idea.
they will be spaced, like I say, roughly every 3 weeks, in kind of those gaps. I would not be surprised to see something go up against the Rocket Mortgage Classic
There you
or the
go.
3M Open,
That'll
some of
work.
those.
Yes, that'll.
The John
There
Deere,
you go.
although the John Deere does lead into most years, the John Deere does lead into the Open Championship, although that's actually changed now because they have the Scottish Open now part of that schedule. And I think it has exposed the John Deere as being a very, very weak event. If you look at that particular week, can you name who won the John Deere Classic? Could you name anybody that played the John Deere Classic that week? And yeah, all right, I'll give you Zach Johnson, I'll give you Steve Stricker. Beyond that, who played the John Deere Classic and who won it?
Is that post on?
That was JT Poston.
There you go.
The Poston did ring.
That's because I
So
was just, looking at all the information today, getting ready for the
Okay.
show. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't have
but-
answered that yesterday.
but that was a very weak field. And then you had the LIV event in Portland, which had Dustin Johnson and Patrick Reed and Bryson DeChambeau and Schwartzel and Wusthuizen and all of those guys. So in that particular week, LIV had the stronger field, not the deeper one,
Sure.
obviously, because it's only 48, but they had more names at the top of the marquee than the John Deere could provide.
Yeah, just looking at it, like you can maybe do the week of the Valspar. That's in between the
Perhaps.
match play and the players. Maybe you do right after the Masters. You've got the Zurich Classic would be a perfect week with the team thing nobody watches. That's possible. And you got Mexico after that, so that 2-week period.
That might even be I don't think they'd ever play back to back.
But if they should, yeah.
But I can definitely see them perhaps taking on Mexico in that situation, because that's another one that once it was stripped of WGC status, did not have a lot of cachet in terms of getting players to go down there.
Was that a different course?
It was.
Yeah. All right, so a really, and we touched on him, Mr. Tom Kim, and we've been talking about him for the past month. So this is just, it's not a fluke. He was actually, like I said, I was one of my picks last week at 40-1. And I just look, he these Koreans, they're their dedication, they're like machines sometimes. And you just and it can help them and when they get this good, because we saw it with Matsuyama. Even I know he's not Korean, but it's just they can get into these mindsets where they're just dialed in. And now that he's got a win on the PGA Tour, sky's the limit. I mean, he's still a teenager, right?
He's 20.
Oh, he's 20
I don't know how long
Okay.
he's left his teenage years behind, but he is 20 now.
So that's young for a PGA Tour winner. That is really young. I know there's a lot of 20s out there that have won in the last several years, but 20, that's really young.
I believe, without having it in front of me, it ranks in or at least near the top 5 youngest PGA Tour winners in history. And certainly with a performance like that, being able to blitz that front 9 on Sunday, he's got tons of talent. And we've always said, that once the Korean men start to get a little traction, because it seemed like all of the energy in that nation was focused on the women, maybe because you could get traction a lot quicker that way. But when the men eventually had a chance to raise their game. And let's face it, it's a little bit of a more multi-tiered, longer path to get onto the PGA Tour. But once they started tasting some success, that you were going to be able to see more of that talent come along. And we've seen it obviously with Sung J M, now with Tom Kim. You can think about a player like Soon Yul No, who had some success for a while. Again, it's not this blitz like we get on the LPGA side, but they are making inroads, no question about that.
Interesting that this is going to be the 4th year for the FedEx Cup playoffs with a 3-event system. And out of the first 3 years, in the first 2 events before the Tour Championship, so that means 6 winners, no one has won with a world ranking outside the top 25.
And I think that as the current PGA Tour membership has become adjusted and used to the FedEx Cup as an entity, and the rhythms of it and how you plan your schedule and what it means. I remember early on when the FedEx Cup was first introduced, not a lot of people particularly cared because it was new and is this going to catch on? Obviously, a FedEx Cup championship is not worth, close to a major championship, and it probably never will, but winning a season title is nice. But as the new generation has kind of come through, and they've gone through something similar in that, you got to you got to be top 25 for the season just to graduate from the Corn Ferry to the PGA Tour. They're used to kind of that full season, where are you in the standings type of look. So now I think there is an increased emphasis put on it. I think the PGA Tour did themselves a favor too, in that going from 4 events to 3, the one thing that I heard a lot in those early years was 4 consecutive events. By the time you got to Atlanta, you were gassed. And that made everything so volatile because the players that had been playing so well had nothing left in the tank. And your number one was dragging down around 25th out of 30 golfers at Eastlake. So by reducing it to 3, kind of making it almost guaranteed that unless you're a golfer from the Carolinas, a Webb Simpson type, if you're in really good position for the playoffs, you have no reason to go to Greensboro. That's when you get your rest. And then everybody that's a professional golfer these days can certainly handle 3 high intensity weeks without losing too much steam. And I think that has helped across the board. But just in some of the talk that you've heard as things have evolved, certainly in the past decade, Rory McIlroy has put emphasis on winning a FedEx Cup championship. Jordan Spieth put emphasis on winning a FedEx Cup championship. As those players become the mainstays in the PGA Tour, and the old guard gets kind of pushed to the side, I think it has raised its status. And by raising its status, the really elite players plan for it. And that's why it's so difficult for somebody from outside to win these days.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think though that because the tour's gotten so deep that's got to change. And I'm not saying somebody that's 200 to 1 is going to win. That's not what I'm saying. But even somebody that's ranked 45th or 60th, or let's just throw out some names, like even like a Russell Henley, somebody that's 45th to 55th ranking, that kind of guy, they could win this week. They're talented enough. So I see that coming. I could even see it being this week. But it is that much harder when you're looking at McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Cantlay, Schauffele, Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, Cameron Smith, Rahm, all in the same event. And it's like it's these are majors now almost, like you were saying. So it's really that. But I think this first week, that's the week you got to get it. If you're an underdog, if you're a long shot, if you're somebody that's not with the top guys, because they all know that they're okay. They're okay. They're not going to have to worry until next week. So not that they're not going to try to win, but there's no pressure there for them. But it's all the other guys, especially those guys I mentioned, they're the ones that I think, and they're good enough that if they step up and have a good week. So I wouldn't be surprised. And again, whether it's this week or next year, somebody outside that top 25 will break through pretty soon.
At some point, yeah. Or you just get a hot golfer that maybe, has won the 3M championship really recently, or is playing well. Now it just so happens that a couple of events where you might have had that kind of golfer win 3M and Rocket Mortgage, well, Tony Finau decided to wake out of his slumber and and take those. And we know how good Tony Finau is.
Yeah.
But for a guy like a Tom Hoge, who has not won on the PGA Tour, or I take that back, he won at Pebble Beach, and has had some nice top 10 finishes. He's 17th in the FedEx Cup standings, so I guess maybe he doesn't quite fit that profile. But
rankings
you could
see
a guy, you could see a guy like Tom Hoge, who has had a very good year.
I agree.
Catch a little fire and play well in this first playoff event.
Yeah, if I was looking at guys like that for this week, I'd probably throw a few bucks. Well, Henley is one of them because he's trending in the right direction, and he's 50-1. Max Homa is 50-1, but he's in the top 25. But Henley 50-1 with Homa, and he's outside that area, so that's why I bring him up. Thigala continues to be intriguing because if you look at Thigala, he's 130-1, and I don't even know where he's ranking at this point. But if you look at it, this actually might be a good week to take him because he hasn't really played well the last few weeks. And so if you look at it, since he became a full-time pro last September, he's had 5 top 10s and 3 top 5s coming after bad performances. So 47th 1 week, then 8th, 65th 1 week, then 3rd, a miscut, then 7th, a 57th, then 5th, and a 53rd to 2nd. So he's not one of these guys that needs to put 2 or 3 weeks together to head in the right direction. He could have a bad week or two, and then boom, he's contending because he's that wildly inconsistently talented.
Yeah,
that I could see a guy like Thigala actually winning this week if he gets off to a good start.
I could see that. Now the thing about Thigala is, like a lot of young players, Sunday has down the stretch has been an issue for him. And, again, in this case, I could see Sahith Thigala winning the Rocket Mortgage Clashes, the John Deere Classic. Those are easier pickings, so to speak, because you don't have to go up against Scheffler and Rahm and McIlroy. And I think what sometimes happens in these tournaments, the playoff events, I was trying to look it up real quick, and my internet's a little bit slow, but yeah, the big names are winning. Who's finishing 2nd and 3rd? Are there guys who were in the mix to win and yet wound up being beaten by one of the elites, and they got a nice paycheck and a nice set of FedEx Cup points to guarantee that they got to Atlanta for the Tour Championship, but in terms of winning, they're still behind the elites.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, you had a bunch of those guys because really, if you look at it, the top 4 of the top 5 being out Cam Smith, Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas. But the rest of the guys, which were in the top 10, Tom Hoge, Alex Noren, Eric Van Rooyen, Corey Connors, Keith Mitchell, and Kevin Na. So these are the guys we're talking about that they were close. So it only takes maybe getting a little hot at the right time, and then maybe they could actually pull it off.
Yeah, but you do have to leapfrog
Justin Thomas and Jon Rahm and Cameron Smith, and
they're out of the top 8. Just to pull a number out of the air, I bet 3 of the top 8 are in contention on Sunday, and you've got to beat not just one of them, all 3.
So that's pretty much, I pretty much say, I mean, maybe Post On actually too. I wonder
Possibly.
if Post On, you tell me, do you think Post On's a guy that in the next year or two could end up like a top 50, a top 40 type of player?
Possibly a top 50 guy. I haven't seen enough consistency to say, okay, he's going to jump into the top 25. And, these days, that's a pretty steady top 25, even for the guys that haven't won, like
Like
a Will
Answer.
Zalatoris and Cam Young. Yeah. And remember that Abraham Answer, his ranking is falling and will continue to fall like a rock
Yeah.
because he is not getting any world ranking points until they decide to hear that lawsuit. Not really a lawsuit, but an application from the LIV Tour.
Now, as far as the top dogs this week, I'm actually looking at my two would be Cam Smith and Schauffele. And that's because at least Cam, who not only has got wins like a lot of these guys, but he was a solid, as I mentioned, he was a solid fifth last year here on this golf course. And by the way, let's keep that in mind. It's very important. It's on this golf course, not in the last year's event, because that's the other thing to not confuse everybody is that this particular event or this golf course, you're not looking at any other prior FedEx playoff events because this is the first time that this golf course is hosting this type of event. So we have to look at the previous 3 years, 21, 20, and 19 at the St. Jude Classic at TPC Southwind. And so that's where you got to look. And that's where Cam Smith finished fifth. So and he's 16 to 18 to 1, which is really not that bad.
And two, I think with this, it does help that Memphis has gone from being a World Golf Championships event into a playoff event because you're able to judge against similar fields. If it was the time before it moved into the World Golf Championships series and it was just your standard late July, early August PGA Tour events, and you weren't getting the Cam Smiths of the world, to judge finishes there would be a whole lot different because you would just not have the caliber of field. But going from WGC status, where pretty much everybody in the top 25, 30, 50 play,
Yep.
and now being a playoff event, you can draw a parallel between the two.
And then Schauffele was top 10 a couple of years ago, but he's and look, couldn't win 3 in a row. So that's okay. He still played pretty well at the Open Championship. But I just think that maybe could be his year, Schauffele. Maybe
Could be.
this is because he's played well at the Tour Championship before at East Lake. So he's
Yeah.
got a good record there, and so if he just maybe if he wins or has a couple of top 10s, top 5s heading into East Lake, that could set him up really nicely. So if I was picking someone to win this thing, I might actually go with either Cam Smith or Schauffele this weekend for the FedEx. Who do you like? Who do you like to win the FedEx as far as the top guys, which I'm sure it'll come down to?
Well, I think it's always been who is hot. And Schauffele has been hot. Even when he's had a quote unquote off week, he's finished in the top 20. He has not finished outside the top 20 since a miscut at the Masters. That's a pretty good run. Now, to his credit, he's also spaced himself out pretty good, and he is getting rest, and he comes in well rested. He has not played in 3 weeks. Now, there is the rust factor perhaps involved, but
well, the good news is a lot of these guys haven't played in 3 weeks.
Well, and that's true. If you're going to kind of gear yourself up for the playoffs, maybe you want to keep your hand in it by playing 3M. Although if you're coming back from Scotland, you're not playing 3M. But maybe you play Detroit, maybe you play Wyndham. Some players do like to kind of get a running start in, but you've gotten your rest. That's the one thing that I think everybody has learned over this first 15 years of the FedEx Cup. But Schauffele has been very, very consistent. You have to wonder, even though he took the week off and he deserved it and he needed to, but does Tony Finau carry this over? It's another tournament that he has done okay at.
Actually
But
has not played well on this golf course, though.
okay.
So that is one thing I noticed. He doesn't have a top 25 in 3 appearances at this golf course in the 3 years that he played it. But yeah, the next step for Tony Finau is definitely, whether he plays well this week or not, is can you do something now? It's the FedEx Cup playoffs. You've been in contention before in majors, so you've shown you can battle with the best. But can you win it? Can you win something big? And that's last year was a great start for him. Let's also remember last year was a little bit different crowd, which is a huge difference when you're not having like the major crowds out there. Like it's going to be jam packed for the next 3 weeks. That's a little bit different too. But I think I need to see Tony Finau. I need to see him compete and win one of these 3 events or one of the next 2. And if not, then we got to see him win a major, something big next year.
We have to remember that he's still in his 20s. I think it's late 20s these days.
Yeah, he's getting old now.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly with the talent that keeps coming up,
Yeah.
and we're not gonna see that go away anytime soon. But the fact that he is playing consistently and now between his 2 wins, he came from way off the pace and got a win that way, and then was able to carry the momentum to win a tournament where he was at or near the front the entire time. So I was pleased for him to see that as well, in that some guys, and this was Finau up until 2 weeks ago, some guys just really struggle with 54 hole leads they need to chase. And maybe Finau has been able to overcome that a little bit by winning from the front in Detroit.
Yeah, and all I'm gonna do for the next 2 or 3 weeks is put money on. There's 2 players who I'm putting money on all 3 weeks, as long as they keep playing well. That's gonna be Zalatoris and Cam Young. I'm just because they're gonna get good odds, decent odds, and they're just too good, and they've been too close to winning, and you just know it's coming soon. Now maybe you gotta wait till next year. But
See, that's the thing. Can it come in the playoffs?
Yes, it's got 3
or
more
is it
chances.
one of those where they'll wind up with that win in the fall against a weaker field, or perhaps on the West Coast swing, where the fields are good but not fantastic.
Yeah, that's why this would be better.
Yeah, this is major championship caliber fields all 3 weeks, which means you have to stare down Justin Thomas and Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay and Scotty Scheffler,
which they've been able to do pretty well. Yeah. So Cam Young has got 4 runner-ups this year. He's got 1 at the Open Championship, 1 at Wells Fargo, 1 at Genesis, and the others at Rocket Mortgage. So 3 tough events, including a major. And he's been 3rd twice, 1 at the PGA Championship. So Cam Young, Zalatoris, we know his runner-up record in majors. So that's why I'm saying it's like these guys are so close that, it's going to be easy to make some money on them as a favorite in some fall series event or in January at the Sony, when everybody's expecting him to win. But this would really be nice to see if they can pull it off when the odds are a little bit 25-1, which is what they're at right now in a tough field. So what about you? Who are you looking at? Who would you go with this week and to win it all?
I think for this week, I would probably be a little bit like you. I wouldn't necessarily go straight to the favorites, because I do agree that maybe that the guys who are at or near the top of the world rankings will pace themselves a little bit. But you also kind of know that now that we've got this new format in place, when you get to Atlanta, you don't want to start 6 shots back,
No.
especially if you're starting 6 shots behind Cameron Smith, just to pull a name out of the air, or Scheffler. So, one player that kind of jumps out to me is, and he plays well in this particular part of the country, and that's Sam Burns.
Oh,
He
yeah.
has won in Florida. He has
Absolutely.
won in he has won in New Orleans. I think he's won in New Orleans. He has won. His Korn Ferry win was in the state of Georgia. He is a native of Louisiana. Played at LSU, and just I think that's a comfort zone for him. So being able to go to Memphis is a guy that he's not on that list of favorites with a McIlroy and a Cantlay
Sure.
and all of that, but he's lurking just outside. He's in a really good position in terms of the FedEx Cup points list, and to be able to kind of sneak one in here and now, that put him in great position for Atlanta, another tournament in the American South.
Yeah, he's played this golf course once and he finished second last year.
There we go.
And of course, he's got 4 wins since last May of 2021, and he's about 35-1, which is really good odds for a guy like Sam Burns. So absolutely agree with you. And the other veteran I'd probably put a little bit of cash on would be Spieth, who's also about 28-1. I like the way he's playing. He's been a little bit more consistent this year than in previous years. So he hasn't been able to recapture, though, any of those major wins or any big event glory like he's had. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe he's overdue for a big win. He hasn't had one in a while, and he's played okay here on this golf course for a few years. That's one of those other. And Matsuyama, I'm intrigued by. I just want to make sure that he's healthy. I know he withdrew his last time out. And hasn't played particularly well in the previous couple of events, but that was Open Championship. That was, I believe, the other one was Scottish Open. I'm not worried about those events. And he was second on this golf course last year. So I think Matsuyama is also somebody that could be hungry. I think he only has, 1 win this year. Spieth has 1 win this year. So a couple of battle-tested veterans that may be overdue for a nice win.
Well, and the interesting thing about Matsuyama is that he has really kind of had a struggling summer. Didn't made the cut, but finished 60th at the PGA Championship. He played very well at the U.S. Open, and then again struggling in Scotland. Maybe that's a little bit to be expected, but just has not really had his stride going back to the spring. I think it might have been the West Coast swing where he was playing very well and everybody was expecting a lot out of him, kind of in that late 2021, got to get my years straight, late 2021, early part of this year type stretch.
Okay, so Burns is a nice pick. And again, I like Zalatoris, and I know Jared is a big Zalatoris guy, and I'm a big Cam Young guy, so we got those guys covered.
Now, does Zalatoris play well now that he's fired his caddy and gone with his coach for this stretch?
Oh, yeah? When did that happen?
That happened in the middle of the tournament at the Wyndham.
Oh, did he really? Yeah, he actually, I think he might have played better over the weekend.
Yeah, and it was one of those things, and Zalatoris was very thorough in explaining it. But as a lot of players are, his caddy is a very close friend, obviously with golf background and all of that. But the pressure of the PGA Tour was straining that friendship. And so to save the friendship, he canceled the business relationship. Wow. But it's an interesting time in that at least for the end of the Wyndham, Josh Gregory, his college coach, old college coach, was his caddy. And I'm not sure if he's going to stick with Josh Gregory for this stretch or if he's going to go outside. But it is a caddy change at a very important time of year.
Hey, he hasn't won yet, so maybe that's what he needs. 66, 66, 68 last 3 rounds. Zalatoris at the Wyndham. So that was pretty good. Okay, so as far as the big names, give me a pick. Who do you think wins it if you're going with the big names?
Wins this week?
No, the FedEx, the whole thing.
Wins the big enchilada.
Big, yes. Who gets it done? Will Rory win? Boy, Rory, I got to worry about Rory's psyche because I don't know. After the majors are so important to him right now, I'm not so sure he's going to be focused yet. I think he needs a week or two before he cares much about what's going on right now. That's just me.
Well, he needs momentum. He needs something to point at that's saying that he can. If he can get into third gear this week, then he can roll into Delaware and then roll into Atlanta and be able to take care of business. But he has been so close, but has found a way on Sundays to back up, or at least tread water, and you can't tread water at these tournaments. And so I'm although McIlroy has obviously won FedEx Cups before, I'm with you. I don't see that. I like Cameron Smith. I think when you can putt like Cameron Smith,
that helps.
You're in any tournament.
Yep.
From the very beginning. And even if you're having a quote unquote bad putting week, I'll take Cameron Smith's bad putting week over some other players' good putting weeks.
All right, so that's going to be your pick, Cam Smith to win it. And if Cam Smith wins the FedEx playoffs, will he win Player of the Year?
I absolutely, I think so. And depending on what happens with the FedEx Cup playoffs, who actually does
who can beat Scheffler for Player of the Year?
Cameron Smith for
Cameron
one.
Smith. Who else?
Because Cameron Smith, don't forget, not only does he also have a major, he's got the Players Championship, which is the near major.
Yep.
So, and he has another win on top of that. So I think Cameron Smith, very much a challenge to Scottie Scheffler. And those players, when it comes down to a vote, what do you value more? How much do you value the Players Championship as opposed to Phoenix and Arnold Palmer? So, those are two really, really strong resumes. If anybody comes from outside to win the FedEx Cup playoffs, honestly, I'm not sure that they could displace those two at the top of Player of the Year.
Just Cameron Smith. He's the only one that can knock off Scheffler.
I think so now.
So even McIlroy. Yeah, McIlroy wins it. He's not winning Player of the Year. I agree.
McIlroy has one win. That was Canada. You could make an argument for Xander Schauffele. I think if Schauffele were to come along and take it, because he has multiple wins this season, he might have that chance, but
no major.
But he does not have the major to his resume like the other two. Yeah. And then kind of that secondary, that second tier of decision making. Scheffler's got the Masters, Smith's got the Open Championship. Scheffler's got a World Golf Championship, the World Golf Championship right now at the match play, and Smith has the Players Championship. So as you go down that list, even Schauffele will not be, unless he just comes out and wins two of these three, which I suppose is possible. But those two, their resumes are far and above everybody else's as far as I'm concerned.
All right, sounds good, Jeff. How's everything going with the Villages?
They keep me busy, and we're now in the top 25 papers in the United States in terms of daily circulation.
That's awesome.
We're bigger than papers in St. Louis and Buffalo and Memphis, and we benefit a lot from our demographic, but when it comes to circulation numbers, and I realize internet numbers are different and the approach to the internet is far different, even to just, for quote unquote neighboring papers. Orlando's approach to the internet and our approach to the internet are night and day. But we've never had to reduce staff, and we are continuing to add staff. And so it's a good place to be.
I'm glad to hear it. And hopefully that just keeps, that momentum just keeps going. Especially with, with the economy the way that it is, that's good to know. Economy isn't exactly in a good space. It's not going to be in a good space soon, but, you're happy when you hear there are businesses out there that are doing well, and it might continue to do well, especially in the media, because that's important.
Yeah, and like I say, we benefit from our backyard,
Oh yeah.
and that people still like to have the physical newspaper, on the breakfast table while they're having their pancakes and coffee.
Yeah.
But it is a valuable resource to them, and we are growing. We have for years been the fastest growing community in the country. Again, we have special a dynamic that is involved with that. But I tell you what, you can't build houses fast enough. I've said that for 3 years. Even during the downturn, you still had building going on. And now the only reason they don't build houses faster is because it takes months to get roof trusses from the supply chain.
Yeah. That's right. It's a crazy time we're living in, but everybody's got to deal with it. And again, that's why it's good things are going well. So
Yeah.
we'll talk again in 2023 during the next, again, one more year at least for the 2022-23 season, the wraparound. Is that how
It'll be
it's
the
one
last
more?
wraparound season, yes. And then the fall will be kind of a standalone. It will have an effect, but it will have it on two levels. There's the elite level with those big tournaments for the top 50 in the world, and then there's the smaller tournaments for those that are looking to secure PGA Tour cards. Again, I don't have all of the rules necessarily in front of me. They are bringing back. One thing that excites certain traditionalists is they're actually bringing back Q School for the PGA Tour. For the
Oh,
last number of years, that qualifying tournament only got you to the Corn Ferry Tour, but now they are going to, not many, I think it's five, maybe not even five cards, but it will allow you, if you're a hot shot coming out of college, if you're the next Scotty Scheffler or whatever, you don't necessarily have to go pay your dues for a year, but you've got to prove it in that 1 week.
well, when's that coming back?
That'll be part of that whole new package that goes
Next
into
year.
effect next fall.
Okay. Jeff, appreciate it. Enjoy the golf over the next several weeks because after that, it's on to 2023, pretty much. If you really like a die hard, I only want to see the best in the world play. And by the way, Live Golf, how many more events do they have this year?
They've got 5 events left.
Five more. Okay.
And that's part of their plan too, is again, let's avoid the majors, let's avoid their big events. But once the FedEx Cup playoffs is over, I think there will be like a week's gap there. But then that second week of the PGA Tour off season, I think, without looking at the schedule, maybe it's the first week. There's an LIV event in Boston.
Okay.
And then there's another LIV event. I think they are playing back to back. Maybe they're filling both weeks on that schedule. And so we will have some big names playing golf. And then they go overseas. I think there's a tournament. There's a Middle East tournament. I want to say it's Dubai. I think there's a tournament in Asia, Bangkok. I don't know if that's the proper order. And then the finale will be at Trump Doral, a former World Golf Championship site, a PGA Tour mainstay for 50 years, but their finale will be at Trump Doral in late fall.
Leave it to the Live Tour to not give a shit. All right, Jeff, appreciate it. We'll talk to you in 2023.
Have a good one. Thanks for the
You
invitation.
got it.